back here for another video. In today's video, we are going to talk about my story with Alzheimer's dementia, which is a really kind of difficult topic. Obviously, if you guys watched my older videos, especially why I started keto, I'll link it up here if you haven't. I made very brief mention of it as to why I joined keto and my association with Alzheimer's. So September is, or was, World Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And I was hoping to do this video a little bit earlier, but you know, with everything that happened, it just kind of slipped my mind entirely. I thought it was November, it's actually December, but anyway, whatever. Before we get into the video, just some normal housekeeping. Thanks for joining the, thanks for watching this channel. Thanks for joining me for this video, and if you haven't, consider subscribing. Just click that red button down below and you can subscribe to my channel so you can get tons of awesome videos, because I'm super awesome and we're going to do some amazing things on this channel as soon as we get through this one. So let's start at the very beginning before I start my story, just so you have a frame of reference. A lot of people use the words Alzheimer's and dementia interchangeably, but what really is the deal with those two words is that dementia is the overall umbrella term for cognitive impairment. That includes lots of different types of things, Alzheimer's being one of them, Parkinson's being another. There's about, I think 8 or 10 more terms underneath dementia, but just so you know, for the sake of this video, that's what Alzheimer's and dementia are. So yeah, so my dad was diagnosed about 3 years ago with probable Alzheimer's. They say probable Alzheimer's because you cannot distinctly diagnose Alzheimer's until post-mortem, when they actually take a look at your brain and see what's going on. So that's why it's probable Alzheimer's dementia, and that is the diagnosis he received about 3 years ago. So, but you know, that's not the beginning of the story. Oftentimes, especially in my case, there's lots of time before the actual diagnosis. There are years actually of things just not seeming right. When we were growing up, you know, you hear your parents or other adults talking about older people saying that, you know, they're going senile, they're getting forgetful, you know, they're just getting old. So that's how my family always discuss the issue of dementia. And so for a couple years before the actual diagnosis, things were just not quite adding up. So it was probably some time that I was in college, like right at the end of my college career, right when I just started working. Of course, the market had crashed. I wasn't working professionally. I was working overnights, late nights into early mornings in the theater. And so I didn't really get to see my dad. Like, we were on opposite schedules. I would come back home at 3 o'clock in the morning and he would be up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work. So we had a lot of time that our schedule was just not matching. So unfortunately, thinking back on it, there's a lot of times there was probably signs of something happening with him, but I just wasn't seeing it. I think the first indicator to me that something wasn't really quite right, like it was more than just, you know, you're getting old sort of forgetfulness, when I opened the cupboard in the kitchen and there was just sacks and sacks of rice. Now that sounds really kind of weird. Like, why would rice tip me off? There was just so much rice, like an inordinate amount of rice in the pantry. And so what was happening is that every time he went to the grocery store, he would say, oh, we need rice. So he would buy another like 5-pound bag of rice to bring back home. So when I caught on, there was probably like 6 or 8 bags of rice there. Many of them not open, many the same exact kind. And it was just like crazy amounts of rice. That's when I started saying, hey, something's not right here. Nothing's completely right here. And at that time in my own life, I was considering going to Korea to go teach English because, you know, obviously I wasn't working, like gainfully working. Obviously the theater was great, but I wasn't making any kind of money. I wasn't working in my degree field. So I was like, okay, there's an opportunity to go teach abroad. This might be great because I love to travel. I would love to go to Korea, let's do this. So I was in the process of doing all of that paperwork while these things were starting to really kind of throw up red flags. And so, you know, I don't know what my other sister saw when she was here, because we've never really discussed it, but that was the first thing that really kind of said, hey, something's not right here. Past that, I started to see that he was having, my dad was a teacher. He taught at the local medical school. And, you know, obviously when you're a teacher, if you guys are teachers, you know, you're teaching the same thing kind of over and over and over again. The classroom might change, but the material doesn't, especially at that level. So he was having a hard time getting through his lessons. Like, these are things that he knows like the back of his hand, but he's like missing words. He's having a really hard time. You know, with me, he was like, he can't, it's like he can hear you, but he's not hearing you when you speak to him. Like, your words are kind of getting mixed up. If it's a complex sentence, then the first half and then the second half is just not quite matching up and melding in his mind. So, you know, I begged him, go see a doctor. Something's not quite right here. So he went to see a doctor, and that doctor, I forget what his official title was. He was some sort of neuro something or other. That doctor told him, you know, they did MRI scans of his brain, everything. The doctor told him that, you know, you're overweight, so you have sleep apnea. So this sleep apnea is probably what's causing your short-term memory loss, because obviously sleep apnea is when you stop breathing in the night. So theoretically, if you're not breathing, then potentially brain cells are dying, and that's what's causing the short-term memory loss. So that's the diagnosis he came back with. And so we're okay, we're going to get your health together because obviously you're not even 60 yet at the time. We can't, you know, if you gotta give up that soda, let's give up the soda. Let's give up all the rice and the bread. Let's get you healthy. And so we did that. I got him a big jug of water, a big water jug, put it on the table, say, okay, I'm not going to tell you that you can't have soda. Okay, what I'm going to say is you have to drink this entire jug of water before you can have your first soda. That's it. I'm not going to say no soda, you know, drink this whole entire jug of water, then you can have your soda. And knowing that if he finishes it, he's not got no room for soda. My sister bought him a juicer and like, oh, we're going to juice, making shakes, blah, blah, blah. Eventually what happened is, without getting into too many details about that, because that's a whole nother story, my dad ended up losing his job. From what we know of what happened, essentially, people or students were complaining that, you know, he was losing all of his words and they couldn't learn from him. So essentially, he lost his job at the end of the day. And so my dad had always made it very clear that he wanted to live his later years back home in Grenada. He, you know, planned once I was through with college or fairly well into college that he was just going to go back home, build himself a house, make a little business, and then just live his life out there. So, you know, after he lost his job, then obviously financial issues ensued with the house and the thing, whatever, tons of stuff going on. We decided, we being me and my sisters, decided that maybe we should send him back to Grenada for a little while, because obviously back home in Grenada, if you guys are from the Caribbean or have been to the Caribbean, we just don't have all of the food temptations that we do here. Life is a lot simpler. You're not eating out all the time, just not the opportunity. And this is something that he's always said that he wanted to do. So, you know, we sent him back to Grenada, hoping that, you know, he'll just lose the weight, his mind will clear, he'll, you know, not progress further with the sleep apnea, damage to his brain, he'll just kind of go and do whatever. Lo and behold, obviously he came back and forth and we went to see him. He wasn't getting better. So after about a year and some, probably like 18 months, we decided to bring him back up to the States and get him like a more thorough exam, because obviously it is not just sleep apnea induced short-term memory loss. This is something a lot more serious. So, you know, we sent him to like a real facility. You know, they get your body clear. You see all these sort of doctors all under one roof, and we did that. And so basically, what they told us there is that, you know, your dad has Alzheimer's dementia. It looks very much like that, because they had thought maybe it had a stroke, maybe it was just sleep apnea induced memory loss, all these sort of things. They tested it all out, talked to him, did memory tests, etc., and it was just, no, it looks highly probable that this is Alzheimer's dementia. And can I just tell you, I was actually traveling for work at the time, so I wasn't even home in New York, and my heart just dropped. Like, literally just dropped. And I was like, okay. So I hung up the phone, and then I just burst into tears. I'm so glad that I was not actually in the office. I was where I was staying. But as soon as I hung up that phone, I just burst into tears. And I was just like, I can't. I can't anymore. Like, I'm just so tired. You just feel so exhausted, and your mind is just racing, and you don't know what to do. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. I was pretty bad for like the rest of that night into the next day. Everyone was asking, what's going on? But you don't know so much. And I think I was holding on to hope that it was some sort of stroke or something that had caused it, and that it wouldn't progress further than it already had after the sleep apnea diagnosis. That, all hope was gone. Every single shred of hope that I was holding on to was gone. So yeah, after the diagnosis, it was just, the funny thing is, I have a sister and a mom, other than my dad, who are in the medical field. And the two of them, my sister and my mom, were constantly dropping the dementia word. Right from the beginning, once we were really kind of certain that something was really going on, the two of them were dropping that word, dementia. And, I'd studied in the medical field, but I never went on to professionally pursue it. But so I'm I got a little something as far as medical terminology and understanding how these processes work, etc. So I was like, let's not throw that word around, because that word is very, very scary. And we had said that 2 years prior. And now 2 years later, here we are with an official diagnosis. Finally have official diagnosis, and this is what they're telling us. And so the first thing that we did is, because one thing I should say just off the bat is that the thing about Alzheimer's and any of the other dementias is that, unlike when you get a diagnosis for, let's say, cancer, you get the diagnosis from the doctor and then nothing. There's absolutely nothing to follow it. They say, okay, this is your diagnosis, and that's the door. That's essentially what happens to you. And I thought it was because of, I was just at a sucky hospital, or you had a sucky doctor who didn't kind of give us more. But as I learned more about it and watched other people talk about it, I learned that that is how it happens in the healthcare system in the U.S. People from across the country, all different sort of financial stratas, same thing. When you get an Alzheimer's or any other dementia diagnosis, they give you absolutely nothing. Anything that happens from that point, from the point of diagnosis onwards, is entirely up to the family and caregivers. That's it. Because I don't know why, but it's really sucky that way. And so when I got that diagnosis, all I could think was, and it's a horrible thought, and I'm like crazy to even say it out loud, and especially put it onto the internet. When we got the diagnosis, when I heard the diagnosis myself, I wished that it had been a cancer diagnosis. It could have been stage 4, terminal, got 3 months to live. I would have preferred that over an Alzheimer's dementia diagnosis. Why? Because when you get a cancer diagnosis, and I can say this from experience, when you get a cancer diagnosis, there is a plan. You get that cancer diagnosis and they're already telling you what you're going to do next. There's already a plan. Even if you're at stage 4 aggressive, there is a plan. We're going to do this. We're going to try that, etc., etc. When you get an Alzheimer's dementia diagnosis, there is nothing. And all you can think about, from my experience, is the multitude of years that you have in front of you that are completely unknown. Because, you know, you can read all sorts of websites where they give you these sort of timelines, but the timeline really is like 3 to 20 years. And, you know, each stage they have like a timeline. This one's going to last about 2 years. This one's going to be about 3 years. But really, by the time, the actuality is, by the time that you get a diagnosis, you or your loved one gets a diagnosis, you've already been in the process, in that timeline, for probably a few years already. Because in the early stages of dementia, you, the patient, don't even realize that something is wrong. It's your loved ones, the people who live with you, who are really close with you, who notice it first. And by the time you actually have a diagnosis, or they can make a diagnosis, you're already at like stage 3. You know, and everything after that is a big question mark. The doctors can't tell you, no scientists can tell you, you know, the patient can't tell you what's going to happen. Like, you could go down rapidly, you could linger on, you can have bumps and ups and downs. There's absolutely no way to tell. And that's what I think makes it scarier. Because, you know, for instance, with a cancer diagnosis, if they tell you that you have terminal stage 4, they have 3 months to live, it gives you a perspective. You know, it gives your caregivers a perspective. It gives them a starting point. We don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. Half an hour later from right now, everything could be fine right now, but in half an hour, it could literally be anything. That is one of the hardest parts about receiving an Alzheimer's or dementia sort of diagnosis. It's more than just getting old and being forgetful, you know, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, you know, you lose some of your memory. It can't be that big. No, it's a huge deal, because not only do you lose your memories, you lose the ability to create new memories or form new processes in your brain. You lose control of your body. You lose control of your emotions. You kind of lose yourself. And as a caregiver, co-caregiver, however you want to say, for an Alzheimer's patient, it is the saddest, most draining thing ever. They call Alzheimer's dementia, or they call dementia the long goodbye. And that's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. Because it's been, 3 years since I want to say 3 years from the diagnosis, about 5 years since it became apparent. And it's like, it gets sadder and sadder every single day. And as a caregiver, you can't relax ever. And it's really hard. I don't think people can really understand how sad it is to see. And thankfully, at this point for my dad, he's almost blissfully ignorant of everything that's going on, which is a mercy for him. Because if he was aware, you know, we don't really know if he's aware or not, but it just seems as though he is blissfully ignorant. And for that that's a sweet, sweet mercy for him. Because I don't know, this was always his like worst fear in getting older, that he would lose his memories. That he would lose his mind, essentially, because my dad was super smart, like one of those really smart people. And yeah, it's the saddest thing. I don't want to cry on this video, but yeah, I mean, there's really nothing to do but cry sometimes, and that's how it honestly feels. But I wanted to share my story primarily in honor of Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Also because I think it's kind of shocking that Latinas are 1.5 times more likely to develop dementia, one of the dementias, than their white counterparts. And African Americans or black people are twice as likely than their white counterparts to develop Alzheimer's dementia, or to develop dementia. So I think it's very important that I share my story, that, you know, so maybe it could help somebody else out. Maybe you're noticing something's not quite right with your loved one or your parent. You know, it's more than just you're getting old, so you're getting a little bit forgetful. It's the emotions aren't right. You know, their emotions are escalating and dropping just a little bit too quickly. Your words don't seem to be getting through to them. Some way they're kind of drifting off and not really engaging with people anymore. These are some of the, indicators that something might be going on with your loved one cognitively. There is a whole list, a checklist on the alz.org website. I'll leave their website linked down below. If you're maybe thinking that something might be going on with your loved one, check out that link down below, because it could definitely save you some heartache. To just know it, it is better to know, but yeah, I don't know. It is better to know, but sometimes it's not. Because, while I say it's great for him because he's blissfully ignorant, sometimes I would think it would be great for us too to just not realize what's going on. But of course, my dad's at the point now where, you can't be ignorant no more. It's very, 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 very obvious that something is wrong with him. And it's difficult caring for someone who's as sick as he is. But the thing about Alzheimer's dementia is that there's nothing external that shows the world that something's wrong with you. He can walk out the door right now or be on camera right now and you would see absolutely nothing wrong with him. He could walk out and do whatever he wants because he looks like a fully functional adult. He's still in good shape physically, but if you ask him his name, he might not be able to tell you what his name is right now. It's crazy. So what I mentioned earlier this summer is that he did end up in the hospital because of some other situation. That is another story time when I'm not so angry about it. That can be a story time later, how he ended up in the hospital. But it was bad. It was bad, and it was sad seeing him in there because they had him strapped to a bed. He wasn't sleeping, and because my dad technically has early onset dementia, because dementia, as far as the statistics know, majority start at 65. Obviously, my dad was younger than that when he received his final diagnosis, but he was strapped to a bed. He wasn't sleeping, so that made him more agitated. The sundowning was it was so bad for him. He was attacking the hospital staff. And so obviously we couldn't take him out of the hospital because as far as the social workers could see, he was really bad shape. And so we needed to find a place for him to go. But the problem is, I don't know if this is everywhere, but the problem is for us here where we are in Brooklyn, or where he was in Queens, is that most nursing homes, even if they do offer memory care, that's what they call it, even if they offer memory care within their facility, want the patients coming in under memory care to be old and frail. Why? Because most places will just kind of give them some drugs to sedate them, stabilize their mind. That's what they're saying, stabilizing their mind, and, sit them in a wheelchair or in a corner, and they'll just sit there for the rest of the day. That's how most nursing homes want their dementia patients. My dad, on the other hand, is still quite young in the terms of memory care. He still wants to walk around and chat and do this and do that. So most places are like, no, we can't take him. He's going to be way too much work. And, they're not wrong. They're not wrong at all. And, I know how much work he's going to be. Trust me, you're not telling me nothing new. I know. But, that's the kind of fight that it is constantly from the time you get that dementia, Alzheimer's diagnosis. It's a constant fight. It's constantly looking things up and talking to this person and that person and going to support groups. And, we went to a support group, and unfortunately, you think you go to an Alzheimer's carers support group and that everybody will understand your story, but our patient, our loved one, was the youngest person there. All these other people, their loved ones are like 70 plus, and they just kind of sit there and watch TV all day. And we're like, no, we can't have him sit down and watch TV all day because we might come back and he's taking something apart. Taking the vacuum cleaner apart or something. He's gone out to do God knows what. Who knows? So, yeah. this video was very informative, but I wanted to share something with you guys. And yeah, I don't know. So while we pray for research to give us the medication that will cure this awful, awful affliction, and while we'll deal with the side effects of the medications that are currently available every day, we, my sister and I, will at least try to do something for ourselves in the hopes that this may help. We might be completely wrong, but for right now, we're enjoying what we're doing and we're taking every day in strive. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I hope you got some sort of insight into Alzheimer's dementia. I hope this kind of gave you some information, at least. I don't know. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me today. I think I said enough. Thanks guys for watching so much. If you enjoyed this content, please give me a thumbs up. If you have more questions, comments, I can do more kind of discussions as to what we've been doing, what's been going on. There's tons of funny stories, I assure you. Let me know down in the comments section below any questions or comments. Thank you guys for watching so much. Subscribe if you'd like to, and thank you until the next time. Bye!